we've had people come up to us and say, "You guys saved my life," and I kind of go, right, whatever. But people said, "No, actually, I was in a bad place, and this really helped me through it." And while I feel like I don't know that I can necessarily take that on. I mean, you're being very nice, thank you very much. But I think to them, it really does mean something. And it's hard for you to take it when you know that you're the one that wrote the song, but to somebody else and the meaning that it gives them that maybe you're not aware of, it's something. It's very humbling, but it's very, very powerful. Hi, this is Dexter from the Offspring, and you're watching Billboard News.
Hi everybody, it's Rania Niftos with Billboard News, and I'm so excited we have Dexter from the Offspring in the studio today. Hello.
Hi, hello.
And we've got to talk about the album, Supercharged, something that you described as pure energy. Tell me a bit about that inspiration and getting the energy.
That's right. You know, we've done, 10 albums or something, so it's like, what can you offer when you're doing this, right? That you want to do something that you haven't done before, but you don't want to go so far out there that it feels strange to people who like the band. And it just felt like going kind of a little bit more direct was the right way to approach this record. I just wanted something that was energetic and really upbeat and just slamming in your face kind of.
I feel like you guys do a good job too. I mean, being a band all these years, keeping it fun and keeping it fresh, because I mean, it's your job, and you want to separate the job from the creative, and you still want to keep it fun and fresh. So I feel like you guys do a good job at that.
It's got to be fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's the thing, is we really, really enjoy what we do still, you know.
It's important.
I love going out and playing the shows because there's kind of an immediacy to that where you get the reaction from the crowd and they're singing along, and like, it's hard to explain to people, like, there's nothing like that feeling when you've written a song and people are singing your words, right?
Yeah.
And the first time I experienced it in person, gosh, that was like in Italy, and it just blew me away. And the first time, you hear yourself on the radio, that blows you away. And you still get that feeling, that kind of adrenaline kick or that buzz when we play live. And you don't want to feel like you're just playing the same songs night after night for the rest of your life or whatever. So going into the studio is the other side of it that I think is equally as important. Like we're a band, what we want to do is write music and stuff. So having that part is a big deal for us, and so that's why we keep on making albums.
On the album as well, I want to talk about Make It All Right. And I feel like I love the message of the album. I feel like it's a really cool thing for something like you guys, because so many people look up to you, to hear a message like that in that song. Tell me a bit about the songwriting process there.
It's not always like you have this idea like, this is what the song's going to be about. It kind of evolves as it goes along. What does the song sound like? What should it be about, or whatever? And I like the idea of talking about a relationship with whether it's your girlfriend or let's say your kids or whatever, but that it's kind of like they're feisty, and I like that, but you can tell they care and they really do make you feel better in a way. It's kind of like, as the guy in the song does, he's kind of complaining, but she's kind of like punching him in the arm going, "You're all right, suck it up," that sort of thing. Like how the guy in the song realizes that you're there to make it all right. I thought that was just kind of a nice sentiment. Our songs often deal with struggle and stuff like that. Sometimes it's okay just to have a song that's like, it's all right.
Yeah, and we need that punch in the face every once in a while. That
For
it's like,
sure,
let's take
right?
a step back. Like things are pretty cool, especially if you're at a show, an Offspring show, listening to it live. I mean, things are pretty good right now.
Yeah, and when I heard the music to it, and what made me feel like, it almost felt like this feels like the Beach Boys meets punk rock in a way, right? I thought that was kind of cool. I mean, of course, we're from California. They're always associated with California, and I thought that was kind of a cool connection to make.
Yeah, and I feel like it's also kind of indicative of kind of where you were recording this album, right? You kind of recorded it everywhere: Maui, Vancouver, Huntington Beach.
Yeah.
I like that it ends up kind of feeling the flavors of the different places in the album.
West Coast for sure,
Yeah.
right? For different reasons. We live in Huntington Beach, so we have a studio there and we do a lot of work there, but we also did a lot of work in Maui, where our producer lives and stuff.
So cool.
And yeah, I know, it is cool. There's worse places to work, right? Let's say that.
I love that. And of course, I mean, speaking again of kind of live shows and openness and creativity, I like that you guys, even though you do have your sound, the way you're saying, you're not stuck to any idea. You're not precious about it. Like, I mean, you performed with Ed Sheeran at BottleRock. Open and in a lot of ways so accepting of so many genres. What made you that way, I guess? Because it's surprising in a good way.
That was always important to us when we started.
Yeah.
We grew up listening to punk rock. I mean, that was what really changed our lives when the Ramones came out and the Sex Pistols and all that. And I always loved that energy. but I didn't want to feel like we were just stuck in that genre. I wanted to be able to do things here and there that were a little bit outside that. So even on our first records, we had songs that weren't typical what I would call punk or whatever. You know, by the time Smash came out, some of those songs, some of those more mid-tempo songs that come out and play ended up being the singles and stuff. So we've always kind of experimented with that, like kind of what I would call like expanding the circle, or, you know, opening the aperture a little bit of what these songs could be. So you couldn't be pigeonholed, right? I didn't want to be a punk band. I want to be known as the Offspring, right?
Yeah. And I mean, because that's not fun for anybody. And I mean, and then you do have people like Ed Sheeran, who is a pop artist who loves your music and wants to perform with you.
I know. That was one of the most shocking things. It was actually Noodles, our guitar player, who had heard that he was a fan, and we happened to be playing at BottleRock together about a month ago or a couple months ago, and so we actually reached out to him and said, hey, would you want to join us on stage? And he wrote right back, said, sure, I'll do it. And you know, kind of surreal. And you know, I think he's great. He was never someone that I would expect would be a fan, much less even know who we were, right? So it was really cool getting to meet him. And then we came in the trailer because we were going to just run through the song backstage really quick. Like there was no rehearsal or whatever, you know. And so he was there, and we go, okay, Ed, we heard rumors about this Offspring tattoo. Is that for real? Thinking there's no way.
Does he have one?
He goes, oh yeah, let me show you. So he pulled up his shirt and he's got this giant Offspring skull.
What?
On his, I know, and we're like, yeah.
I didn't know that.
You would never think, right?
Oh my God, you would never think. I love that. Worlds colliding.
I know. His story was he was like a young teenager, and one of his first records was our record.
I love that.
And that he learned all the songs and, you know, loved us from then, and we were just kind of an influence, I guess. Yeah, he's into a lot of crazy stuff. He talked about some super hardcore, gnarly bands that you would never think would be part of his thing, but just such a lovely guy.
Besides Ed Sheeran, you have plenty of incredibly famous fans.
Yes.
I mean, Brian May came out and singing a Queen song with Brian May.
I know, talk about, you know,
cool.
legend of all legends, right? I mean, just incredible. He has this festival that kind of focuses on astronomy and music. It sounds like
your
yeah, I know,
interests.
right up my alley, right? So we basically begged to come and play the festival. So we did the show. It was great. Just having a little bit of back and forth through email, we suggested, you know, would you consider, haha, kidding, not really kidding, would you join us on stage for a song? Haha, I didn't mean it. And he goes, yeah, sure, I'd come out. So we settled on Stone Cold Crazy. Stone Cold Crazy now. You know, I was not showing it, but freaked out inside. I was in my hotel room, like singing the lyrics 100 times, so, you know, thinking I was gonna forget one of the lines and stuff. And he was just, I mean, a champ, you know, a sweetheart, lovely, lovely man. So great to get to know, and such a cool thing.
Queen, talk about another band that a lot like you guys just knows who they are, and, you know, has always throughout their career, you know, were who they were.
Oh, for sure. Man, it's so great. And we got to hang out with them afterwards, and I mean, just couldn't have been nicer. Such a great experience.
So cool, so cool. I mean, and then I also want to talk about Smash, of course, that you mentioned. 30 years since Smash's release. It was a top 5 album on the Billboard 200. No small feat at all. Came out with some great songs from that album. Now you're in the 30th anniversary of it. You look back at that album, what is something that comes to mind?
Yeah, you know, we're really proud of it, I guess, is kind of the first thing that comes to mind. I mean, we feel very, you know, lucky. I mean, geez, this was, you know, lightning struck somehow, and we were there, right? Like, who knew? That album was made very cheaply because we didn't have the money. You know, you've heard the term DIY, right? Do it yourself, right? Which people wear that as a badge with pride, like, we did this ourselves, and we did it ourselves too, and I am very proud of it, but it wasn't like a choice. We had to make our own t-shirts.
Right.
I mean, we were gluing our own album covers together. No one else was gonna do it. No label was gonna do it. No one was gonna sign us. No one was gonna book our tours. You know, we grew up that way, and it was fun. It was all a big adventure.
Yeah.
So when Smash came along and we did it ourselves on an independent record, Epitaph Records, and it took off, it was just like, wow, what's happening?
It makes it particularly special, you know, when you have all that hard work that went into an album like that, and so, you know, manual work, like you're so involved in it. So special, I think, when that's the album that takes off, something that you're so invested in.
Yeah, and like I said, it had to take off on its own because there wasn't a promotional budget from the label so much, not that much, not compared to a major label and stuff. So the fact that it took off organically and did what it did, and they tell me it's the most selling independent, I guess, rock, I don't know what the category is exactly, of all time, and because no one buys records anymore, that record is likely to stand, which is great, but it's just something that we're really, really proud of looking back on.
Yeah, I mean, clearly well deserved. I mean, is there a song on that album that you look back at now and have like a different relationship with it?
I think one song that really comes to mind on that record is Bad Habit. Everyone knows because of the breakdown where people, you say stupid, dumb shit, goddamn motherfucker, right?
You stupid, dumb shit, goddamn motherfucker!
That was like so taboo back
Right.
then. Now maybe it doesn't even mean, I don't know if it's even that big a deal, but.
It still is. I feel like with everything going on in the world right now, I think people want to scream that. I feel like if anything, it means more.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I knew that I loved punk rock and I loved the energy of it and the aggressiveness of it. And I also knew, even though I was, 28 years old at the time, I knew that kids love to cuss.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I should just have a little breakdown where it's just solid cussing. And it turned out people like that part. But I've heard so many stories now, especially like 30 years later, guys coming up to me, they're 40 years old. They said, I used to play Smash in my bedroom, but when that part came on, I had to turn it down, right? Or all these stories of people coming in saying, my parents got me in so much trouble because of your record and stuff.
That.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such a special thing to have a piece of art out there that people, like even people in here, we all have like a memory associated with your albums, and it's so special to be in that position.
Yeah, that's what's cool too, is as time goes on, seeing more and more people coming up and telling their stories. And I can't tell you how many times I hear like, you guys were my first record, or my first greatest hit. Somebody out there just, yeah.
I mean,
Stuff
it's so
like that.
special. What an honor, to be so ingrained in people's lives when it comes to something like music that is so precious to people, you know?
It's cool. It's cool. And it's also something that you can't see it at the time. You just know you're out and a bunch of other bands are out. And there are bands that are more established than us and bands that are older than us, and journalists that are older and more experienced. And they weren't always very nice to us or our record, like saying things like, I think this record's a little more interesting than your last record. Like they would say stuff like that. And like it was a tough interview sometimes. So it's just interesting how over time, something about it stuck with a certain generation or group of people, and now it's come out to end up being something that is, I guess, more highly regarded than it seemed to be at the time.
Outside of music, you are very busy. You are quite the Renaissance man. I knew you were into flying. I knew you were a pilot. What I did not know is that you fly the band to gigs personally.
Yeah, I know.
That is so crazy.
What's wrong with that?
There's nothing
singer
wrong
in the band,
with that.
flying in an airplane, flying the band.
I mean, you are getting there. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, these days relying on planes is tough. I mean, you put it in your own hands. I'll get us there. How fun is that?
Maybe because this whole band thing took off, I have an unrealistic expectation of what I can do or whatever, right? But all those crazy things you want to do when you're a kid. Like I wanted to fly fighter jets when I was a kid, and I tried to get in the Air Force Academy, and
So
I
cool.
almost got in. They weren't going to let me fly because I had to wear contact lenses or whatever, and so I decided to do something else, and I went to university instead. But I always wanted to fly, and so when I finally had the chance to later on, after the band took off, I started flying, and I just get a big kick out of it. I love it, and I have a plane and we take it on tour. But I will say I always take a pilot with me on tour. I don't want to take all the credit because on tour you should probably have some help in the flying department.
I mean, it's pretty cool. I mean, like, I feel like this is such a dumb question, but is it scary, like being up there and having, just this tube of metal in the sky that you're in control of?
Yeah, I can see how there's two things going on, right? On
Yeah.
the one hand, it can seem exciting and adrenaline and maybe scary, and I'm way up here, and what am I doing? And on the other hand, it's very peaceful. It's very
I can see that being the case.
almost meditative in a way, which is kind of
Yeah.
weird. And like, I love flying single pilot. There's something about it. I love the getting away, and it doesn't bother me to be by myself.
Of course, you also brought your interest in flying into a promotional thing for Light It Up.
Sick of being nice. Light it up, light it up, light it up. Got a rocket on my back.
The song's great, and then you mixed it with your passions, just blending everything together.
It just all came together, right? We put out this song, Light It Up. And that's a song that's very near and dear to us because it's kind of like I call it straight up the middle. Like it sounds like people go, I love that song because it sounds like your old shit, right? And sometimes as a band guy, you're like, I don't want to just repeat myself, right? But you got to realize that people like your band because they like a certain sound, right?
Exactly.
And so you're kind of like, well, how can I make a song that still feels good and feels like it's not forced to us,
Right.
but still has all that energy? And that was kind of what Light It Up was all about. So that record was about, or the song was just about to come out. I happened to know a guy with a fighter jet in Utah, and I said, can I hop in for an afternoon?
Insane.
And so we took some footage, and our social media guy said, well, these two things are both happening at the same time. Why don't I put it together?
That's so cool.
You know how it goes.
Yeah, you just call up your friend with the fighter jet, hop on in, and just start promoting.
Yeah.
Is there a passion of yours that you have that you haven't tapped into yet that you're curious or you're interested in exploring?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I'm always on to something else.
Keeping
I
it
don't know.
fun.
Keeping it fun, yeah.
You also have a hot sauce company. Speaking of your many talents, you're also into
Yes.
food.
People ask me all the time, why did you start a hot sauce company? And I don't really have a good answer except to say like, it's fun. Hot sauce is fun, right? I don't think I'd be as passionate to start a yogurt company necessarily.
Right.
Not shitting on yogurt. No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, there was
Listen,
just something.
from a lactose intolerance person, I don't think yogurt's for me. So.
But there was just something about hot sauce that always seemed fun. And I grew up in Southern California. I love Mexican food and Latin culture and all that. And so I was always experimenting with hot sauces and salsas and
fun.
just decided to make one.
Have you ever done hot ones, or would you ever think of doing that, like increasingly spicy?
I would love to do
test?
it. I would love to do it. We haven't gotten that one yet.
But I think that you are so inspiring in so many ways. What advice would you give, to people who have a passion? I mean, I don't want to say just music. I mean, because clearly you've made many of your passions, you've had them come into fruition.
Yeah.
What advice would you have?
I mean, it all sounds cliche, right? Well, if you do what you love, then you'll never work a day in your life and all that stuff. And I mean, maybe that sounds a little bit trite, but you got to find something that you really love to do, and you should try to follow your heart in terms of that. I mean, within reason, I guess, right? Like, I mean, I was pursuing the band, but I didn't expect it to take off, and that's part of why, I did stay in school, because it's kind of like, I don't want to be one of those guys who has to do something they really don't want to do for a living, just to barely make ends meet in case this whole thing doesn't work out. But of course, in the back of my mind, that's what I really wanted to do, and that's what I was devoting a lot of my energy to.
With Supercharged, what message do you hope fans get from that album?
We started as a punk band, and people ask us, are you a punk band, are you a rock band? And I don't even know what exactly the right answer is anymore. Maybe someplace in between, but you don't ask Pearl Jam if they're a grunge band. They're Pearl Jam, right? And I hope one day to attain that level where it's the Offspring. But even in terms of punk, like I think there were different kinds of punk bands that inspired us when we were younger. Like the Sex Pistols were very, what I would call like nihilistic, and the Dead Kennedys were very political, and somehow that all fit under the umbrella of what punk was, right? And so for us, I think the idea is that you should always think for yourself, don't take anything at face value, don't do something just because someone says you should do it, and go out and find your own path.
And I can definitely speak for everyone watching. You certainly are the Offspring. There is nothing like you guys out there.
Awesome.
Well, thanks so much, Dexter.
Thank you.
Such a big fan of yours. Such an honor to be sitting with you
great
today.
speaking with you.
And
Thank you.
congratulations on
I know,
everything
we're
going on.
stoked.
It's so
We're
cool.
stoked.